I began to have debilitating amount of pain everywhere and numbness and tingling. And I was also became incontinent, like from the waist down. I couldn't feel anything and I just couldn't hold myself. So I was in the emergency room so many times. I was being told by doctors, my sister took me to vascular surgeons and to orthopedic surgeons, and some of them told me that I was terminal, that I'm going to die. I'm only 27. I don't deserve to not do the things that I wanted to do, like to just sit in a wheelchair, be dependent on pain medication, is just not the life that I wanted. There are still days that I don't know how I'm going to continue. I don't know where I'm going to go.
I feel like if Americans knew what was happening to the injured, they would be so appalled at the abandonment and the censorship that you have all faced. Welcome to the React 19 podcast, where we bring awareness and support to the COVID-19 vaccine injured and discuss the science, research, and laws that affect all of us. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us again today. I'm Ann Forty with the React 19 podcast, and today my guest is Hannah Sparks. Hannah, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Anne.
Yes. After reviewing your story, I just shook my head because I was like, somewhere along the line, someone could have taken responsibility. I just felt like you were just passed on from one person to another to another. And I just like, how does this happen? And in a sense, I guess that's the journey of everyone who's vaccine injured. And so I just am really looking forward to having you share your story. I do want to make a note, you took the vaccine, both of them, and then you got the booster. And I want people to realize, because people can think, how could you take all those? Well, at the time, there was so much censorship. You didn't even know that people were having, because you were having kind of a health issue a little bit before this happened. So at first, you couldn't even connect all these new things that were happening to you because of the vaccine, because you haven't even heard about it because it wasn't being out. And you also, your mother had died from COVID, she was in the nursing home, the same nursing home in New York where they were putting everybody, and you can tell that part of the story. But I just want to make sure people just have a lot of empathy here, because so many people just did not know any of this was even possible because of all the advertising and propaganda and everything else. So, and all of that, the mic is yours. Just, begin where you'd like to begin and tell your story and where you are today.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, so I'm gonna start from where it felt like it was the beginning for me. So in 2021, kind of, um, just a brief introduction. So I was applying to grad schools, to grad programs, and I got accepted into one in New York. And one of their requirements was it was an in-person program, so there was no online option, and I had to be vaccinated to be on campus, which is where I was going to dorm and live. So, and they were not accepting the Johnson vaccine because it was a one-shot dose. So it was either Pfizer or Moderna. And I was already, like you said, having health issues. So how I made my decision was that I was already hearing things about Moderna and blood clots, and I was already having my own health issues. So I went with Pfizer because I didn't hear anything about Pfizer. It wasn't being reported, like you said. And immediately after my first dose, within 15 minutes, I had an allergic reaction, dizziness, headache, rash, swelling, and I ended up in the emergency room. And I was treated for that with steroids, Benadryl, and amlodipine, which was what they were saying was the protocol at that point. And I requested a letter from the physician for an exemption from my school because I already had the allergic reaction. I don't think I'd be able to tolerate another dose. And on the letter, it was written that I can take Moderna and not Pfizer, but they were both mRNA vaccines, so I wasn't allowed the exemption.
That's just madness. That's just madness.
Yeah, and then the school nurse had said that because I took my first dose in a pharmacy, I needed to take it in a hospital setting, which is what I did. And I was pre-medicated with steroids and Benadryl and took my second dose. I had another allergic reaction and ended up in the emergency room, even though I was in the hospital already. But they couldn't really treat me because I was pre-medicated, so all they did was monitor me and send me home. And all my other symptoms started right after that. And I wasn't sure where it was coming from. To me, it was my own symptoms just being exacerbated. Like I began to have debilitating amount of pain everywhere and numbness and tingling. And I was also became incontinent, like from the waist down. I couldn't feel anything and I just couldn't hold myself. So I was in the emergency room so many times. And besides treating the pain and doing scans, they were trying to see if I had MS or some other diagnosis that they were trying to figure out because of the numbness and tingling. So I was referred to neurology, and we did the whole outpatient workup, and it's a whole thing. But I'm not going to get into those details because there's another link to that which you'll
Yes,
hopefully post.
I will definitely put to hear a very thorough explanation of everything that's happened to you. I will put that video in the show notes because you give a very chronological order of everything that's happened. And what was so shocking to me through all of that, for as many times as you were in the emergency room, and I don't think you were ever asked if the did the vaccine even come up during those times? Like, hey, could this be a reaction to the
No,
vaccine?
no. The vaccine for my first two shots, besides the allergic reactions, every other symptom I went in for was not linked to the vaccine through the doctors. They did not even mention anything. So, and I did give
Although
a
these,
history.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I did give a history that I did take the vaccine, and it wasn't even linked to it at all.
That's shocking that you had a reaction to the first one. You had to be medicated for the second one. All this happens after that, and nobody says, "Oh, gee, maybe this has something to do with your reaction."
No,
The
unfortunately not.
incompetence just all throughout your story is just incredible to me. And then I don't remember when it was, but when you went in, you were in so much pain and you went
Yeah,
into the emergency room and they basically told you to get out because they thought that you were there just because you wanted drugs.
yeah, so many times I was unfortunately like said that I'm a junkie, a drug addict, all those words, all those not nice words, because I'm 27 now, and this was happening when I was 24. I got my first two shots when I was 24, turning 25. And already it was after my third booster, I was mandated to get it for my job. I worked at a healthcare facility in a clinic. So it wasn't even 6 months yet, and they requested it or I'd be terminated because there was a surge in New York. So it was a mandate again. And so I was pre medicated again, and I did it again. But to me, like I said, there's like I was on the verge of already being homeless. I got kicked out of my grad program because I was too sick to attend. And so this was like it's just an allergic reaction. It wasn't supposed to become paralysis and nerve damage. It was not supposed to be any of those things. Um, and so yeah, there was this one time I went to the emergency room and I was in so much pain. And the resident came over and said, "I saw your chart. You're always here for pain medication. You're not getting any more. Get out." And I was in so much pain, like there was no way I could have gotten out of there. So I was like, "I need to see your attending." And I saw the attending, and he told me, he's like, "You're in this much pain. I've only seen like two types of patients scream like you. You're either in labor, which you're not, or you have cancer." And like I said, there was so many other differentials. Nothing was ever being put towards the vaccine. And it turned out that I did have cancer. I had thyroid cancer, which was later on discovered. Um,
That it,
and
it's
yeah,
just crazy. And I just want to back up for a minute because in regards to your employment, like they literally gave you, like you were literally stuck, which I'm sure which was the case for so many other people. They were like, you have 24 hours to get this or we're dismissing you. I mean, you literally had no choice.
right. Yeah, a lot of people chose to quit their jobs, but to me, I was in so much pain already, and I was in so much, like, I had so much going on. Like, if this was what was going to keep me off the street, just a minimum wage paying job and keep giving me my mental sanity of having somewhere to go and doing something, then it was a small risk to pay. It was just an allergic reaction.
Yeah,
Like
because
I said,
you didn't even connect it to the vaccine.
no,
And
not
and you're just like, I gotta eat.
Right.
So tragic. So tragic. So then you find out, so they tell you it's either a childbirth, which you're not, or you have cancer. And then you end up seeing an oncologist, right?
Yeah, so there was another night throughout this whole process, I couldn't lift my right arm. I was eating dinner one night and I ended up being partially paralyzed. I couldn't feed myself. And so at the clinic that I worked at, you have to have all abilities because it's a physical therapy clinic. You have to be able to perform your job activities. And if you can't and you're a danger to patients, you
Mhm.
obviously can't do your job. So I'm the type of person I wouldn't put someone else at risk. So I had to resign and I'm like, I'm already on my way of resigning. I might as well see the oncologist. What do I have to lose? Like I'm already in this downward spiral. So I did see the oncologist. He ordered some scans and I was being treated for a lot of inflammation. So after I got my third booster, which was the third shot, I ended up in the emergency room, but this time I was admitted. I was admitted for allergic angioedema. So I was swollen and red everywhere, just like 10 times my size. And I was admitted for 3 days, treated with steroids, pain medication, and at that point, like I couldn't swallow. I don't know what was wrong, if it was the thyroid cancer that was in the way or my neck and my throat, I couldn't swallow at all. So any testing that they did, they said it was inflammation. So for a month I was on really high doses of steroids. I was on like 80 milligrams a day. And when I saw the oncologist after I already had to lose my job, he said that I'd have to taper off the steroids because it would mask the effects of cancer, which I couldn't do. Every time I went down on the steroids, I was in just debilitating pain. But eventually I did the scans. I was like, if it shows, it shows. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And it did show that I had thyroid cancer. And so I already like I couldn't move my arm, and when I saw the surgeon, to they didn't know it was thyroid cancer. They just said it was a nodule that was suspected to be cancer. I did a biopsy of my own will because they didn't want to do it. They said if we do a biopsy, it could spread. Um, and so when I found out that the biopsy was cancer, I obviously said, okay, I'll do the surgery.
Oh,
The
because
reason I
hadn't
yeah
they said they wanted to do the surgery even before they did the biopsy? And you're like, hey, I want to make
yeah
sure this is cancer. And that's why you chose to do the biopsy first.
right, yeah, that's
Right.
correct, because they were saying the surgeon that I saw for the suspected thyroid cancer, to them, the paralysis in my arm and being unable to do anything with it, like move, like I was so weak in my arm, they linked it to the nerves in my neck. And because I don't know, like I said, I don't know how it was impossible for one doctor, any doctor, to realize that it could have been from the vaccine because I saw multiple surgeons for orthopedic surgeons because I had a winged scapula and so much weakness and muscle droopiness. And
That all happened after the vaccine.
right, yeah. And
Right.
they said it was from the thyroid cancer that the thyroid gland was too enlarged and it was compressing on all the nerves, which is like I don't even know if that's even possible.
Because you
But
explained to me that the vaccine, which we've seen, was causing the nerve damage and being literally being eaten away. I mean, I think that's the way you described it to me.
yeah, yeah. So I wasn't a doctor at that point, still not a doctor. I only know what the doctors have told
Right.
me that I have. And the
Right.
research that I do is there's only so much that's accurate and that's online. Like, you can't really you have to have all the information before you make your decisions. And so yeah, basically um I was told that once we remove the thyroid, the paralysis would reverse because there would be nothing on the nerves compressing the nerves. And so we did the surgery, but only because I already knew it was cancer. So I was like, I need to do it anyways. And after the surgery, I didn't feel any difference.
Mhm.
My paralysis only kept getting worse. Like I had initially it was only like up on the upper extremity and also lower extremity, but I only felt it the most up top and the pain progressively got worse everywhere. Like it was so awful. I was already ended up homeless, so my family had to take me in. I was living with my aunt and uncle that year, and so because I got so disabled, like they couldn't take care of me. It was just not something they could take on themselves. So I went to my sister. They put me on a plane to Colorado, and I went there for 6 months. And when I got off the plane, my sister, she took me to the emergency room because I looked like I'd have a stroke. My entire right side was just numb and weak, and I was walking just awkward. It was just awful. And when I went to the emergency room in Colorado, they did all their scans and my brain scans were fine. They didn't see any sign of a TIA or a brain bleed. And so it wasn't a stroke, which was good news.
Yeah.
Like I'm able to talk, as you can see, thank God. But like the pain and the numbness and the weakness, that's still there and it's not going away. So, yeah. So I didn't know, like I said, I had no idea up until this whole time what was happening to me. Like this was 2022 that this happened, and I was being told by doctors. My sister took me to vascular surgeons and to orthopedic surgeons, and some of them told me that I was terminal, that I'm going to die because that's how I looked. I looked so awful, physically just awful. And they couldn't put together what was wrong with me. And this one doctor that I saw was an orthopedic surgeon. I saw him for his specialty. So there was this procedure that I wanted, which was to me like I just thought the scapula on the side was causing all the pain and the compression. And I don't know why it started to droop and become weak and winged. So I just wanted it back in place. And he was a surgeon who was going to do that. So we went to him and he immediately knew what was wrong with me. He said that he'd order a scan, an MR neurography scan of my neck, and that there's a good chance I had a condition called Parsonage-Turner syndrome, brachial neuritis, which is an
That's a
inflammatory
mouthful.
response caused by the vaccine. So
So he knew.
he knew, he put it in my chart, but he didn't know how extended the damage was, and neither did I. Like we just thought, okay, I had the scan, he was correct. He'd do the surgery. So I had brachial plexus and neurolysis. He removed the scarring that the vaccine had caused on my nerves. Um, but like I said, we didn't know to what extent. After surgery, I got some function back. I was able to go back to New York and get back my job, but I still
Wow.
had debilitating pain in my leg and weakness and numbness in the trunk. And I was still on pain medication and I wanted to get off of them. So
Right.
it was just, I was in such a bad place. I was ready to like end my life. And I had a good support system. There was my sister was supporting me and other people were telling me don't give up, there's still something we might be able to do for you. And I found another surgeon in Nevada, which is where I am now. He's a nerve surgeon. So I flew out to see him for my leg, and I had surgery with him last year. And again, we didn't know how bad the damage was. Like, I was supposed to be one and done and finish and get back to my life. And unfortunately, I do get better after surgery. Like, the initial pain I walk in with, I come out without. But the rest of the weakness and the muscles that are just damaged, that's no surgery is going to fix that, unfortunately. So it's
So
still going to be a long road.
what surgery did you have in Nevada? What pain did that take care of?
So I had terrible sciatic pain, sciatica, and there's different reasons why that can be caused. Everyone has their own story. But in my situation, like I said, I was a healthy person as I knew prior to all of this. Like I was walking and I was very, into physical activities and I was able to rock climb. I was able to do everything that I wanted to do in my social life. And to have sciatica at like 25, it just makes no sense. Like, I wasn't in a car accident or had a type of injury that should have
Right.
caused it. So, I had a condition called piriformis syndrome, which was the sciatic nerve was being compressed at that level where that muscle is. So the surgery I had was to remove that muscle, which normally would have been fully functioning a normal muscle without all of
Right.
this. So we did that, and I was able to walk out of the surgery with no pain. My sciatic pain was totally gone.
That must have been
Um,
incredible.
it was amazing to feel that way. And then again, like I said, it was supposed to be over. I was supposed to be healthy again. And I go back to New York. I try to get my life back again, put pieces together. And I'm still having trunk pain and upper extremity pain. and numbness, and it was so severe, like I couldn't breathe. And so I knew that my surgeon is a nerve surgeon, so I told him what was going on. I flew back to see him in August, and we reevaluated the upper extremity and the surgery that I had in Colorado. And it turned out that I needed more surgery. So it took some time to get that. I had more nerve compression in the neck. So again, we had to do some neurolysis and remove some damaged tissue, the scarring, and the muscle, of course. So it was a lot, but I went into surgery not being able to breathe, like my diaphragm wasn't able to move and on the right side, and I came out without that. Like I was able to breathe without pain, without feeling suffocated. So it was successful and it felt amazing. But then again, like I said, it was supposed to be finished. I wasn't supposed to be
Right.
continuing on like this.
Right.
And um, I still had pain in my lower leg, in my trunk, and in my arm and my fingers. It's kind of like this electric shock like pain that, like, anytime I put my foot on a surface or my finger on a surface, like, I can feel myself being shocked, like electrocuted.
It's
And
interesting.
it's
So many people, so many of the injured say that. I mean, Bree talks about feeling like she's being electrocuted 24 hours a day. I
right.
just,
Yeah. It's the worst thing because there were certain times where, like I said, the pain gets me to that point where I'm on the edge and I'm ready to do it. And surgery has helped, but like I said, there's only so much surgery can do. It's not going to fix every single inch of the nerve that's damaged or every single inch of the muscle that's not working.
and
And
then
it's
time goes
debilitatingly
by, you
painful.
probably get, oh, here's another thing. Cause I mean, that's what I've seen with so many of the vaccine injured. You know, they get one issue and then 6 months later they're dealing with another issue. And then 6 months later, now there's another issue. And it's just, it's overwhelming.
It is. It's very overwhelming because sometimes I wonder when is it going to be over, and it's just not. There's nothing I can do about it, but just wait, and it gets exhausting. It gets very exhausting.
So where are you today now? I mean, so are, where are you? What are you doing? Like, do we
Right.
have another
So,
surgery? Are you in New York? Are you in Nevada? Are you in Colorado? What's
yeah,
ahead?
I've had to travel for medical care, that's for sure. I moved to Nevada in this March of 24, for
Be-
medical care, of course.
Right, because you finally found doctors who were willing to work with you.
Yes, yes. And so my daily life consists of me being disabled, unable to work, and reliant and dependent on everyone around me for help, for food, for water. There are certain days I'm able to walk, and there are certain days I'm in a wheelchair. So that's a whole other challenge on its own because even though things are wheelchair accessible, it's like the transportation, and it's just like it's a lot to deal with. So yeah, my daily life consists of at least 80% of it is getting through the pain because even with painkillers, even with any treatment that I could possibly get at this point, there certain amount of pain just doesn't go away. It's just always there. Um, Dealing with that, getting through that is a big part of my life. And it's very hard for people to see because when you look at me, I look totally fine. Like
Well, not
like a
exactly,
totally
but
I
okay.
look totally healthy 27-year-old, besides the neck brace, of
Yeah.
course. But yeah, other than that, like no one would ever say that I'm being shocked and having nerve
Yes.
damage.
That's exactly what
And
all the vaccine injured say that. Like, oh yeah, you can look at me and be like, oh, she's fine, but you have no idea of the pain, the electrocution, everything that's going on inside the body, the tinnitus, whatever it is. Um,
right,
it's just so like what's next? What's
what's
I mean, okay, so
for
like
me?
yeah, I mean, do
I'm
you have
not
another
sure.
surgery? Do you have I mean, you're
So
just
yeah, I'm definitely need more surgery. I'm gonna need more surgery for the mechanical nerve compression that I experience. Um, each surgery is a different, I guess, procedure. It's not all the same depending on what's the problem. Um, so yeah, there's definitely up until this day I've had 8 surgeries and I'm gonna need more. I don't know. I don't want to put a number on it because I don't want it to be any more than that. But yeah, there's definitely gonna be more surgery in my future. And I
And
don't
there's
know,
no,
hopefully another
I'm sorry, go ahead.
treatment for me. I was gonna say hopefully another treatment that might be able to help with the pain. Yeah, because there
Yeah,
has to
we
be
were
some.
trying, we were talking about IVIG, which, several people, at least that I know, who are on that, and maybe that could help you. Um,
I would like to try to get that. I'm just not sure where to begin because, as far as I know, insurance doesn't cover it, and you have to have some autoimmune condition to be able to get it. And
well, you
I
definitely
don't know.
have, I would definitely check in with, Bree. I mean, there are certainly enough people within React 19 which could definitely guide you to at least a beginning starting point. Um, You should check in with Shelly too, who we just did her interview last week, because she
Right,
was just, again, found herself in an awful position, is mandated to take the vaccine to keep working. She gets injured. They're not recognizing it. They don't give her her disability ends. So she has no insurance. And so she was on IVIG and it was really helping. And then she can't get it at all because there's no help. There's no help from the government. The CICP claim was rejected, which is, I just think if people, well, I'll go back and finish my sentence. So anyway, but she found some sort of grant to be on it for a year. So she has it for a year, and I can connect you with her, and maybe you can get with that grant program. But
right.
what I was gonna say is that I feel like if Americans knew what was happening to the injured, they would be so appalled at the abandonment and the censorship that you have all faced that they would be rallying and would be like, whoa, we can't be doing this to our fellow human being. We just can't be doing this. And I don't know, what it takes. Maybe people have just been so brainwashed or propagandized that they just, oh, this can't be true. It could never be this bad. I think that's what people believe. Oh, there's no way this could be true because this is too horrific. Well, I want to say, guess what? It is really true and it really is horrific. And that's why we need to keep telling these stories. And we need to keep getting you and all the other injured is in front of as many people as we can so people can see that.
Yeah, I feel like until it happens to the person themselves, they won't know what it means because like I said, I wasn't one to even it was just a matter of when I would get it. It wasn't that I didn't want to get it. I would have gotten it. I just would have waited because my mother passed from COVID and her nursing home was the one that was on the news. They were letting all the infected in there. So within a week of the lockdown, she got it and then she passed. So I knew that COVID would have got me eventually, so I would have gotten the vaccine.
But there were
But
treatments available that, I mean, we
yeah,
don't know that your mom had to die. I mean, that's a whole nother discussion about treatments that, yeah, I mean, there were doctors that saw thousands of patients and didn't lose any of them because of the protocols they were using, not necessarily the one the government was telling people. And so that's a whole nother discussion. But yeah,
right.
no. So as you said, well, it wasn't on your radar because obviously you weren't hearing all the stories because they were being censored.
Yeah. And as far as the CICP, it was like I think there's a 1 year deadline for it. And so by the time I found out that what's going on with me is because of the vaccine injury, it was too late because we're in 2024 and I officially got told it was an injury from the vaccine was this year. Even though the initial doctor who diagnosed me was in Colorado was, within that year, but he didn't tell me, pursue something because this is not over. You're not going to get your life back. I don't know
Exactly.
if he knew, but I don't know either way. Like normally, like I said, this thing's supposed to reverse, it's supposed to go away, and it's just not. It's there and it's getting worse. Yeah.
And if people, again, if the government would just own up to say, hey, we need to take care of these people. There has been a problem, and we're going to commit to, millions, but we're going to commit as much money to you guys as we did for advertising for this vaccine, so whatever couple
Mhm.
billion that was. And just, I think that's just what people want to know is, gosh, we have all this vaccine hesitancy or whatever. Well, is there any is does that makes perfect logical sense if people see people being injured, being treated like you and others. Well, of course that's going to cause vaccine hesitancy. And you can't, I think as Bree said in an interview recently with Patrick Bet David, is that they're just hoping that we'll die and pass away and just kind of, put it under the rug. That's not going to happen because there's too many of you out there, and there's too many of people like me that are going to fight and keep showing up. Just like I was last night at our county board of health meeting saying, hey, every doctor here, you need to know this is the reality. You need to be giving proper informed consent and letting people know that when they sit down in that chair, that if they have any serious adverse reaction, there will be no help for them because people need to know that. So, so what's next?
Next is planning for surgery, finding a stable environment to where I can live because I can't work, so I can't support myself. I'm being supported by charity, and there is a GoFundMe up.
And I'll make
So,
sure to put that in the show notes. And I want people to know, I don't care if it's $5, $10, 20, whatever,
yeah.
just please be open to giving. Please know that you are giving someone a lifeline when you do that. It's
Yeah.
not, I mean, you're literally saving somebody's life, which I do have that question for you. How how have you not lost hope?
So there were, like I said, plenty of times in the beginning when the pain was just too much. I did want to end my life so many times. I was going to do it. I didn't have a plan, but it was to the point where you don't think of a plan when you're in that state of mind. You just want it to go away. And eventually, like I said, my sister was there. I had a support system. I had a lot of people telling me, don't give up. There will be a cure. You'll find your answers. And this was like before we even knew I was injured. This was like we didn't know what was going on with me. But it helps to know now that I know what's wrong with me because now I'm not being fooled by like so many other treatments that are like basically bogus. Like, you know, I don't know how to explain it, but
I know.
there's just people out there who will come and try to get you and sell you anything, and I've fallen victim to that, unfortunately, because
Of
I was so
course.
desperate to find an answer for what was wrong. So there were times where I didn't need certain things and I went for it because I wanted to know what was wrong with me, what was going on. And those unfortunately were experiments on my own self, like, you know, and hopefully I don't do that again because now I know that I'm injured. Now I know the path that I need to be on, which is IVIG and surgery and whatever else can help me deal with the pain. And for me, the goal is to not be dependent on the painkillers because I've always wanted to have a family and have kids. That was one of my things that I was working on besides having a career was having a family, and I'm only 27. I don't deserve to not do the things that I wanted to do, like to just sit in a wheelchair, be dependent on pain medication is just not the life that I wanted. So, knowing that I'm on the right path and that I know what's wrong and finding a way to get through it helps me not give up because I'm trying. So, that's enough for me right now, just to know that I'm trying. If I wasn't trying, then it's like, if you're not trying, why would someone else try for you? But
Right.
I know that I'm trying, so
That's a
hopefully
great
people can
attitude. That's
hopefully
a
people can see that.
that's a great attitude. What what is one thing that you would like those looking in from the outside, like if you had a message for the world, like what would you like to say to people who, you know, maybe don't know anything about this, or maybe even if they do, what do you want the world to know?
I would say awareness because just because it didn't touch that person as an individual, it doesn't mean it can't affect them or their family or their loved ones. So awareness and having as much information as one can possibly have, whether it's accurate or not, at the end of the day, you make the decision for yourself. But you need to have all the information out there, whether you like it or not, whether it's good or bad. It's got to be out there for the person to see because if they don't have the information, you can't make a decision, the right decision that's best for that person. So awareness is important. And it's not just for, this topic, it's for any topic, you know, anything that someone wants to do or purchase or in their life accomplish, they need to have the information in order to make those decisions. So awareness is very important on this.
Yes, and I think, you know, there are people who, maybe on the other side of this who don't want to acknowledge it. They'll be like, "Oh, please don't do your own research, don't, you know, oh, don't think that you can know these things." And it's like, we would never say that about anything else. If you said, "Oh," I heard this the other day, if you said, "Oh, I'm gonna, go buy a car," and if somebody said, "Oh, don't do any research on that," and if you were to say, "Well, how am I supposed to find
Right.
out about it?" "Oh, well, just trust the salesman. They'll tell you everything." I mean, that's,
Exactly.
so to tell people, "Oh, don't research," you're like, that's ridiculous. And people have to know that you're not misinformation, you're not rare. I think almost everybody knows somebody who's like, I mean, there are people out there who don't even know that they're vaccine injured that are vaccine injured. I mean, there's so many people going to doctors. My family member was having an issue. This family member had the vaccine, and when she tried to get an appointment, there was a 1,500 person waiting list. This was in neurology, 1,500
Wow.
person waiting list. So there are issues out there, and at some point, this all, as egregious as it is, you think that there's no way this won't be acknowledged, but then you think, well, it's so egregious that of course the government's going to want to cover it up in any way, but we can't do that. We need to say, no, help these people. Just get them help. I mean, that's the way forward, is to acknowledging it and getting you help and everyone like you help. What are some of the most important lessons that you say you have learned?
Okay, this is a tough one. Important lessons that I've learned. Um, I've learned to be a little bit more cautious than I was, I have to say. Um, I was, I'm still young, but I would say I'm young and careless and not paying attention to the things I would read or see on the news, and it wouldn't mean anything to me. But now I look at it with a different lens. I look at it with like, what's this got to it? Like, is there anything to it?
Somewhere between all
Yeah,
these different stories, I
yeah.
do think we can get something, we can collect as much information from different sources and try to make
Right.
some sort of rational decision.
Yeah, so that's something that I learned to do better. Maybe I was only looking at that, you know, when I was in grad school and I'd have to do assignments. So that was my focus, getting a good grade on the assignment. So I look at it differently. My life is the grade and I have to do good for myself. So that's how I see it now. I see it a little bit differently.
All right. All right. So, Hannah, how has this injury changed your view of life, do you think?
So it changed my view of life. Initially, at first, it was extremely overwhelming and depressing,
Mhm.
just experiencing these symptoms. And there were certain days where I would wake up and say, "I'm never gonna have a family. I'm never gonna have a child. I might as well just die. I'm never gonna have this. Never gonna have that. I'm never gonna do this." And then I don't know, like tiny little things would change, and it would make a difference for me. Whether I would be able to see a doctor or have an appointment or get a medication. And it changed my, like, I went from having no hope, zero hope, to little bits of hope. But still throughout the process, like, there are still days that I don't know how I'm gonna continue. I don't know where I'm gonna go. There are still days that my view of life has just changed because the life that I initially thought I had, thought I wanted, thought I could get, it became, like, so far-fetched. There's just no way, like, I don't even know, like, how do you go from being in a wheelchair certain days to being able to have a family? I don't know if that's possible. Maybe for some people, but then it's like a whole thing whether you wanna put your partner to be the one to take care of you. You feel like a burden. It's a lot. So it changed my view of life. Sometimes I feel I'm completely delusional whether I could have the things that I wanted. And I don't know if it's true, but um, I allow myself to believe. I do. I let myself believe that I could still have the things that I want. I don't know if it'll happen. I'll probably sound totally crazy, but
No,
if it gets me
no,
through the day, I'm gonna do it.
no, never give
So
up hope. Never give up hope. And I guess, I was going to ask you, what advice would you give other injured and maybe that's it. Never give up
I
hope.
would say also the same thing. Yeah, don't give up hope because, like I said initially, I would say I'm never gonna have this, I'm never gonna have that, and little things would change. So as long as you're up and alive and about and keep going, you never know what can happen. Things can change, and it's not in our control as much as we see that it is. It's just not. Like wherever it's coming from, it's still coming. So um, definitely don't give up hope because if you're here, then hope is alive and things can change. So certain
Well,
days I see it, certain days I don't, but that's the advice I'm gonna give people.
you are remarkable young woman. For you to have gone through everything that you've gone through, and I get on the phone with you and your sweet little voice, and I'm like, how? So,
Right? Yeah.
I'm sure, I mean, I appreciate your spirit of wanting to go forward. I'm like, well, if she can go forward, I can surely do something, and so yes, so you're so right about all those things. Well, like I said, I'm going to put everything in the show notes, your GoFundMe, your past interview, or yes, your YouTube interview where you lay out everything. I mean, if is overwhelming. I mean,
It was a
you
lot, yeah.
you finish that interview and you're like, how does this happen? So I would encourage people to go and watch that. Do you have any other way that people can connect with you, or any other way you can? I'll put that in the show notes. I don't know if you have an email or if you're on social media at all.
Sure, I can send you my information.
Okay, and I'll put all that in the show notes. Any last words? Anything else that you want to say to people or leave the
Um,
audience with?
sure, yeah. I think, like I said before, awareness is important, and just because it hasn't happened to that person themselves, information on the subject, on this topic, is important because just because a person doesn't like what they're hearing, it doesn't mean it's not true. Okay. A lot of times we don't like the things that we hear. And again, that doesn't mean it's not accurate. It doesn't mean it's not true, or there's not even a tiny little grain of truth to it. There's always something in everything, and it just awareness is important on this.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as I think of your story where we talked about nobody took responsibility, I would like the listeners to say, hey, take some responsibility here. You're hearing this, whatever little thing you can do. Maybe it's sharing this interview, with family, friends, somewhere on social media. Just if everybody does just even one thing to bring awareness, then the time spent in this interview has been worth it. So, Hannah, thank you so much. I want to do a follow-up interview in a year, and I want to just hear you say, "Oh, I got all this help, and I'm working, and I'm strong, and let's
That
pressing
would be a
on,
dream
press."
come true.
It, I know it would, and so I thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me in.